Border wall standoff could lead to another government shutdown this fall. It's unclear what legislative issues may consume Congress between now and the end of September, but one thing's for sure: veto of a measure to terminate his has the potential to spark another government shutdown on October 1. Yes, the President and Congress just sparred over the border wall during the 35-day shutdown, which ended this past January. They could be back at it. It was thought that the bipartisan attitude on Capitol Hill, which forged a funding agreement, could generate cooperation and goodwill heading into fiscal year 2020. But, the House and Senate lack the votes to override Trump's veto. The House is he is planning to take funds from real, effective operational priorities and needed projects and divert them to his vanity wall. That may help shore up his political base, but it could come at the expense of our military bases and the men and women of our armed forces who rely on them, said Senior Jack Reed. Congress is just starting to prepare the 12 appropriations bills which fund the government for FY20. Almost all therein lies the rub. President Trump's budget request calls for $8.6 billion in wall funding for FY20. Congress likely. Meantime, it's unclear what Congress can tackle the rest of the year. Infrastructure? No action. There's a lot of talk about trade, but the administration hasn't yet forged a formal agreement with China. Negotiators. The agenda in the Senate focuses mostly on the confirmation of judges and other administration nominees. Senate majority. Tax reform is done, for good or ill. Republicans can't. McConnell's set up a procedural vote to try starting debate next week on the Green New Deal, backed by Ocasio-Cortez and others. The Senate needs. Senate Republicans certainly don't support the Green New Deal. McConnell's gambit, or, McConnell also would enjoy Democrats opposing the Green New Deal. He then could exclaim, but it's unclear whether he would score something definitive. The vote set for This is why the legislative agenda on Capitol Hill is so jumbled. There's no clear path. In other words, the rest of 2019 could reflect how the year started.
Raindrop, drop top, smoking, no cooking the hot pot. Fucking on your bitch, yeah, that. Looking up, open the park, pot.